What's up? What's up? Polo Sports Talk and Entertainment. Back again with another one. Be sure to hit that like button, sub to the channel if you're not a member, and also hit the notification so that you're able to be notified of all of my content and all of my videos. Now, Charles Oakley, who has been pretty much on a tirade lately in terms of speaking how he feels on various uh, subjects and issues and everything concerning mainly basketball. He has boldly came out and said that Giannis would not be able to hack playing in the 90s. Um, as you know, Giannis, in my opinion, he's regarded as he's the best player in the NBA right now at this point in time, defending champion along with the Bucks, and just a hard nosed player who doesn't make excuses and goes out there, and his whole mentality is predicated with the tunnel vision like focus of winning. Now, many people feel that he's the type of player that could have played in any era due to how dominant uh, he is. And Charles Oakley has basically came out and said that he wouldn't sit well with the 90s, and he said that Giannis would come off the bench in his era. Um, he said, and this according to Oakley, Giannis won't dominate in his eras because teams would just pack the paint and force him to make jump shots. However, teams um, have been doing that to the Bucks ever since his breakout season. Now, I'm gonna say this though, right here, okay? You know, first off, he's entitled to his opinion. You know, Charles Barkley was one of the more physical players in his era. What's up, Woody Grind? I see you in the building, man. Um, he was one of the more physical players in his era, one of the more opposing players, um, and also known as one of the enforcers. And many people have him as the top enforcer in the league during that time. Now, this is gonna probably rub some people the wrong way, but I don't really care. To me, the '80s was more physical. That's just my personal opinion. The '80s was more physical, and it was more challenging for a lot of players during that time. There were a lot more good players. I think that Giannis, he would he would he would he would do okay in the '80s, but he would do even better in the '90s, if that makes any sense. Um, First and foremost, guys like Giannis and uh, KD, guys like that who were like unicorns, you didn't really see their those types at all. And if he'd have played back in that time, he he's athletic enough and he's quick enough and he's fast enough to do so many things. He definitely wouldn't be coming off the bench in either era. I don't see that happening because first and foremost, he has the mentality and the will to want to get better each and not only each and every season. He wants to get better each and every game, and he takes it as a personal challenge to get better, which is what a lot of the players in the '80s and the '90s did. Okay, they took it as like MJ. He would say constantly, "I took it as a personal challenge to get better with this aspect of my game." Or I took it as a personal challenge to get better with this person, with this particular aspect of my game. When now you have a, a lot of excuse makers who just sit there and make any type of reference to their particular excuse why they're not getting it done, which makes absolutely no sense to me. Look, you signed up to play this game, right? And there are expectations on you. You're a professional basketball player, not collegiate, not high school, and damn sure not grammar or middle school or whatever the case is, pee wee, whatever. You know, you are in the NBA now, so this is a job. This is something that you're getting paid for. And a lot of guys unfortunately don't treat it that way. Now Charles Oakley, he treated it that way, but I disagree with Charles Oakley. You know, Giannis I'm not saying that, you know, he would dominate or anything like that, but I feel like he would hold his own, you know. And to me, like I said, everybody's always like, well, the '90s was so. They're always talking about the '90s, the '90s, the '90s, the '90s. You know, look, why do you think, you know, Jordan, you know, he had a tough time during that era? Yeah, he scored and you know he did his thing, but think about think about the challenges that were that were posed upon him. What's up with it, Switch Life? I see you in the building. You know, we have to understand that, you know, there's very few guys that I see right now that could actually play during that time. Okay, like a guy like Jared Allen, I could see him playing in the '90s because of his mentality. He's a hard nosed, tunnel vision, blue collar, hard hat type of worker. Um, Patrick Patrick Beverly to a certain extent. I could see him playing in the '80s or in the '90s or whatever. And everybody's always of this notion that the '90s was just oh so clearly physical. Listen, we could go all the way back into like the '60s and the '70s and the '80s, and a lot of guys will tell you that it was physical back then too. Because yeah, you know, in the '90s you had guys that you know coming in that were bulky and all this other stuff, but you have to think about what stuff wasn't being called, especially like if you were an African American player back in those days and stuff like that. You know, there was still racism going on during that time, especially if you go to places like, you know, like Boston, the Boston Garden and stuff like that. There was a lot of stuff that was going on during that time that a lot of people don't really factor in. But they automatically make a generalization that, oh, okay, well, yeah, the '90s is just clearly the more physical era and stuff like that. And I used to think that way, but after looking at the '80s and looking at the '70s and talking to some, you know, some family members who were older that played the game, talking to guys that played at a higher level and stuff like that, you know, they'll tell you that the '90s was 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 not the most physical era. And I mean, you got to think about it. The Pistons, what did they do? Where were they? What were where did they start getting their shine? They started to get their shine in the '80s. You know, Bird, Parrish, and McHale, they were in the '80s. Even the '76ers, where when you talk about Dr. J, when you talk about Moses, all them, and shoot, even Rick Mahorn and all them, those that was the '80s. So number one grinder in the building. Make sure y'all tune into the interview. I'm anticipating it, man. It's getting ready to come up right now. What's up with it, brother?
What's good with you, homie?
Chilling, man. Charles Oakley then came out and he basically had said that Giannis would come off the bench
Oh.
in his era.
Yeah, I understand what he's saying, though. I do. I do. You want me to explain?
Yeah, go ahead. You got the floor,
I
brother.
explain because it was more skilled players back then. Defense was played. Everybody needed a role, and the constant power you got to take. The mental that you got to be mentally, emotionally strong. Now, if you look at the NBA right now, you can't, you can't even like play defense now. And so I'm talking about the players was not even all stars then. I'm talking about players that in the league. You got to put some respect on them. Every night you got to be ready. Even if they talking about the '90s, talking about the '80s, even in the '70s, in the '60s, even the '50s, and but I understand that what Oakley come from. Back then, NBA was different, man. NBA, it was rivalries back then. Did they have a few bad teams? Yeah, but they, you play. It wasn't no easy out back then. It wasn't, and so, but I like you said, that's his opinion. But I see what he's saying. I do, I do, because he played it. He played it. He played against the Jordans. He played against the Razor Millers. Play against the Kobe's. He played against the Stockley and Malones. He played with the he played with the Paytons and the Kemps. Played with the Ray Allens and the young Ray Allen, Van Baker. And he had to go with he had to go against a great player or a good player. Or, an all star. And they bring it. You know.
Right.
Wasn't no like super teams. So I can understand what he's saying. We should have that conversation, but it's gonna be, media's gonna say, "Oh, you picking? You don't like how the NBA play, Charles Oakley." But I know exactly what he's talking about. You know what I mean? No, Sub Zero, yeah, I know he's. I'm just saying that you know. I mean, Giannis mental had to be tested that time. You know, so it's a discussion to have. Should.
Well, I mean, this is why I feel like Giannis would actually make it in both the '80s and the '90s. Okay, now first and foremost, granted, I do not see Giannis coming off the bench. Okay,
Oh,
to me, that
Giannis come off the bench. Oh, okay.
yeah, that's that's what,
Well, no, Giannis, I'm not gonna go right. Giannis ain't gonna come off the bench, but I'm just saying that.
but that's what Oak said.
Oh, that's Oakley. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm missed. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah,
Wow,
that's
I just wrote that. Nah, Giannis ain't gonna come off the bench. Right. Listen,
he
Giannis.
said Oak would come out. I mean, yeah, he said Giannis would come off the bench.
No, no. Giannis will not come off the bench, but I'm just saying everything else. What I'm saying, the mindset in the play. Giannis have to get used to that. You know what I'm saying? Giannis played in a time that it's hardly no bumping and stuff. There's hardly wasn't no defense. I'm not saying that people playing now, but we have to be honest. But coming off the bench now, Giannis will probably do his thing, but it would not be as freely right now as it was then. But he wouldn't come off the bench now.
Well, well, the NBA right now is predicated on what, Brian, is predicated on shooting and spacing. So that was the thing that was much different back then. It was, the lanes were clogged. It
Yeah.
was it was a much more physical style of basketball. But I think the one thing that where he's going to thrive though, Brian, is because hey, Giannis, he plays both ends of the floor. And the thing that what did they do in the 90s? Listen, all of the great players, they played both ends of the floor. Michael Jordan, he played both ends of the floor. When you talk about even Wilt Chamberlain, he played both ends of the floor. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, he played both ends of the floor. Now, Larry Bird, even though he was a team defender, he was still willing to sacrifice his body and be a good help defender, team defender. When you talk about Joe Dumars, he could play both ends of the floor. Alvin Robinson, he could play both ends of the floor, just to name a few. And Giannis could play both ends of the floor. He could block shots. He could move out on the perimeter, and on top of that, he could disrupt the pick and roll. And the pick and roll, as much as it is used as in today's game, it was used. Pick and roll was has always been the bread and butter of the NBA, anyways back then. So he's good at disrupting it. He's also good at stealing the ball too and playing the passing lane. So and his mindset, JT, is great. You don't see Giannis up in there, oh, like James Harden. Well, man, I can't get it done, so I'm gonna run. Or you don't see him like, well, you know what, man? Let me join forces with another thing. Man, I'm not getting it done. Nah, he said, you know what? My shooting ain't good. Go ahead, keep on laughing, making fun of me. I'm gonna get it better. And guess what? He comes back. He capitalized on that. That's what Jordan used to do, right? Jordan was like, like with the Pistons. He didn't sit there and make no excuses or anything like that. He was getting beat up year after year. Guess what? He said, you know what? Enough of this shit. After he said, I'm gonna hit the weight. I'm gonna come back even stronger. Next year, come even stronger. Then finally, he was able to get over that hump. And that's the type of mentality. Just his mental state. Giannis don't want to party with you. He don't want to have a whole. He don't want to have a whole lot to say to the media. He don't want to have a sit there and have a hour long conversation with you. Nah, he's just like, let's get to the game, let's hoop, and I'm ready to win championship. And that's why I think that Giannis will make it. Now I don't know how much he would average. I'm kind of trying to figure out about how much he would average during that time. Would he be a 20 and 10 guy? That would be my question.
How much do you think he would add score that? I think he probably averaged. maybe 16, 17.
16,
Back
17.
then, yeah, about 16, yeah, 16, 17. Back then, yeah.
Because the whole thing, the whole thing with Giannis, right? Well, when he in the beginning of his career, he's starting to evolve better now as a shooter. It was just like all he would do was just drive to the basket. Well, everybody was penetrating back then. You remember grinding? That's what you loved about the NBA game. Everybody was constantly go into the paint or back to the basket, and he would be able to adapt. I miss the back to the basket game. I mean, me personally, like back to the basket. That's what you're taught. And well, a good sound fundamental coach is going to teach you back to the basket game. All these players that you see now, a lot of them, what do they rely on, JP? They rely on athleticism. There's no footwork, no fundamentals involved. Well, at least the majority of them. There's some of them that have a nice, a little good little footwork. Like Embiid, he has pretty exceptional footwork, but you don't see like guys like Hakeem just losing motherfuckers with exceptional footwork.
Yeah, but you know Oakley is, he's never was afraid, to speak his mind. So,
Oakley, man, he just been on a tirade lately. Uh, he
yeah,
he.
he went after Scotty and
hmm And plus, I think honestly, I think he just look. He might be being true with what he say, but he's also trying to sell his book too.
could be,
Mhm.
could be, yeah, could be.
Oakie's trying to sell a book. JP.
Yeah, yeah. I know you heard Simmons back. He injured his back. They say he's
Yeah,
out indefinitely.
yeah, I just broke the story. Yeah, I
Yeah.
just broke the story. Yeah, YouTube ain't sending out my notifications, man. But yeah, it's no timetable for his return, and it's a day. It's a day-to-day thing, which I don't think they would be lying about anything like that. Because the back is serious. That's what Draymond Green is struggling with.
And I think that they should take extra safety precaution. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I could. And I think in the long run, I think it's gonna help out the Nets better. I really believe that.
and this is the thing too. This is what people got to realize. He hasn't played the whole entire season. JT, you played, bro. Man, missing. I put it to you like this. I interpret missing games to dog years, if that makes any sense. Like missing a game of basketball is like missing. That's like missing like 2 months. So if you miss a month, yet alone a year or like several months, you still have to catch up to all those guys that are already in rhythm and mid-season form, unless you're just one of the freakish athletes that can recover real quick. Like Clay Thompson, he still struggles from time to time. Yeah, he starting to come back and everything, but he still got to get in the rhythm, man. So if you miss a year of basketball or something like that, that's why like Tyreek Evans, he getting ready to come back. You know, it's gonna take him some time to get acclimated again.
Oh, somebody picked them up.
Yeah, he coming back to the Pacers.
The Pacers.
Hmm.
Okay, good for him. He should. You know what about last? What about last season?
Not the Pacers. I'm sorry, the Bucks. Sorry about
The Bucks. Oh, that's he gonna help the Bucks. He's a vet.
that. Hmm.
What about Lance Stevenson?
Yeah, he signed on with Indiana for the rest of the year.
Oh, that's good.
Hmm. Yeah, Lincoln.
They had Link, yeah, CI baby, CI baby, Coney Island, CI baby. Yeah, I'm gonna tell you, I wouldn't mind he come off the bench for the Knicks. All see him start. No, he played both ends of the. He played both ends.
Hmm.
He gets it done.
Hmm.
The
Hey,
offense will go through him,
yeah,
but the Knicks, wow.
JT. Hey, you know the coach that was on Through the Fire, Sebastian Telfair coach. I forget his name. What was that dude's name?
I
Uh,
totally forgot his name. I forgot.
hey, but why was they hating on that dude so bad, man? You remember like they I don't know if you ever saw Through the Fire with Sebastian Telfair, man, but they was hating on him, and they was, because Lincoln was like they was the number one ranked school for like what I think it was like 5 years, 5, 6 years.
Lincoln be having them great guards coming out, man.
Yeah,
Brooklyn, man.
Marbury,
They don't like that, remember? Look where Stephon came from.
Marbury. I
Yeah,
mean, right?
he came with Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah, and they were just hating on this dude. Like they were saying like how he was doing some under the table type stuff and everything like that. But the guys that they had they would be undersized. They would have like I think their tallest guy would be like maybe like what 6'7" or something like that sometimes. But they would still be killing
Mhm.
because Sebastian Telfair wasn't up but 6 foot. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
But
man.
but he was still nice, man. I wish he would have panned out in the league, JT, man. I hated that he didn't pan out. He should have just went to college, man.
I think he should have went to college for 2 years. He would have been all right. I remember the McDonald's game when he played All American. He wasn't a team player, man. He was like telling people, I'm gonna trying to get more assists. I mean, he was checking the coach. How many assists I got? How many assists I got? I said, come on, man.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, man. Man, All American game. Watch it, y'all. Like, come
Yeah,
on,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember that. Yeah, but
come on, man.
the legends, they were like, "I'm so proud of you."
Come on, man. How many I got, yo? Yo, let me here you go, here you go. I'm like, come on, man.
Yeah,
Come
you were
on.
checking the point. You checking the dimes.
You know, yeah, man. Like, yeah, man. Like, you supposed to do that, nigga. Ah, damn, man. You high. I'm like, yo, how many I got, man?
Right. And see the point guard position, man, it wasn't really like how it's played now. That's not how it's really supposed to be played. It was like a Terry Porter. That's that's how you play the point guard.
And they consider him. They don't even consider him a good point guard because he's shooting and everything. But
He was
I
a
think I
great.
think Tay Porter. I think he got about maybe like maybe
I,
5,000, 6,000 assists in his career.
hmm I absolutely love the way he played the point guard position because it's not supposed to be a pretty position to play.
It ain't. Because you got to call out defense too. A lot of people don't understand. You got to call out defense too, man. You got to see where, even on stats, it's a lot of responsibility, man.
Hmm. But yeah, Stephon Marbury, and see Stephon Marbury coming, especially when he was in college. Man, I used to love Stephon Marbury coming out of college and stuff, man. And his first couple of seasons over there at Minnesota Timberwolves, but then after that, I was like, what happened to Marbury? But like,
Stephon, man, yeah, Stephon had his thing.
I wish him and KG would have worked out though. I wish him, but he's doing good in China. Well, what? I mean, you know, I don't. I think he retired now from playing, or is he still playing? I think he might still be playing.
Well, Terry Porter in his career,
How many? Yeah.
no points. He had 15,586.
Hmm.
That was pretty good. He was 85, first round, 24th pick.
Hmm.
He went to the University of Wisconsin.
They made it to what, three finals, or was it? Well, no, I think because they made it. They made it against Detroit. They made it against uh, the uh, the Chicago Bulls. I mean, I forgot who else they played and they lost. They lost to somebody in the finals. I think they made it because Portland was always getting to the finals. Nobody talks about that. They was always getting to the finals.
Mm.
Don't nobody talk about that. Hold on. Let's see. I just want to make sure.
I want to find out how many assists he had in his career.
Oh, go to Atlanta basketball. Yeah, they made it. No, they made it. Okay, they made it twice. Yeah, yeah, they made it twice. It was 90 and 92. Okay, you want to know how many assists? Yeah, Atlanta basketball. JT.
Oh, I found it.
Hmm.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead, bro.
Found it. It's going to surprise you, though. 7,160.
Hmm.
Pretty good.
Yeah,
That's pretty good. It
he,
is. It's pretty good.
he was an exceptional guy, because he played. He could have, if he wanted to, because I mean, he shot. The way he shot was good, man. Like he could shoot. You're talking about a guy that he was a career 38.6% 3 point
Yeah.
shooter.
And, and check this out. Gary Payton wasn't, he was just a little above him. 8,966 assists.
Hmm.
So you think about Terry Porter was right there.
Right.
Terry Porter was right there. So this is what I'm saying. Gary Payton. Oh, always salute to you, brother. 3,000 degree. So I feel like this. But I think the difference is Gary Payton is in the Hall of Fame because his assists and his defense. Huh?
No, I was saying salute to 3,000.
And let me see. And so, and I think Terry Porter, he's a pretty good defensive player too.
Yeah, he was.
He's a pretty good defensive player. So 7,000.
Had to be.
But I think Gary Payton, when you play in Seattle with other players, that helps a lot too. But I think that Terry Porter should get honorable mention to be in the Hall of Fame.
Well, he would be in my Hall of Fame, but in terms of their criteria and what they look for, that
Nah, yeah, yeah.
they wouldn't do that. But like me and you, if you really understand the point guard position and how it's supposed to be played, and the actual the prototypical point guard, most people would. I would look at a guy like Terry Porter. Like I would want him. I would want, like, if they said, okay, yeah, I'm trying to learn how to play point guard. Look at a guy like Terry Porter, or look at a guy like Chris Paul, or look at a Nate Time Archibald or somebody. What's up with it, young?
What up, little grinder?
What's going on? Yeah, but Terry Porter, and he played, and he was longevity, and he was steady, you know.
Hmm.
Yeah, for me, my opinion is that, like what Scrubs said, Oakley's tripping. I mean, like, this guy, he would never get his. This guy Giannis would never get respect from some of the old guys, from the guys from the legends. That's really
Yeah,
sad. Yeah. Those
he's
guys
like,
this is
see,
not Oakley's not the first one.
look. What Oakley saying that he come off the bench, yeah, that's crazy. That is crazy. I wouldn't say I was it, but if
I'm
he would have said, like, other things, I say it is that basketball is all about physicality,
yeah.
and that's what people fail to understand. It's all about physicality, and you got to understand. Now, what he said about, let's take off the
I wasn't even finished my sentence because you interrupt
Oh,
me
I didn't.
quick.
I didn't. I didn't. I thought you was finished.
No, you interrupt me quick.
Nah, I didn't. I thought you was
Hold on.
finished. So it's my fault.
No,
Go
you
ahead.
interrupt me quick. I'm like, yo,
I did. I thought you was finished. I'm
hold on,
sorry.
buddy. I'm there. Um,
Why you say
me.
calm down for?
Look, I said this. I said no. No. Oakley's not the only one that's not gonna give us props. Physically in the '90s, I don't know how he's gonna do. I don't know how Giannis is gonna do physicality when guys like Oakley, bump into him, give him a hard foul and stuff. I don't know how he's gonna take that if he was in that era. But athletic wise, definitely. Oh, he'll be just like those guys athletic wise, like Sean Kemp's, um, Larry Johnson. Them guys in the '90s, he would be definitely be powering in the rim like that. And they probably in this era they probably gonna move him to center. He'll be a David Robinson type. They might put him in the center, like has a speed as a guard and physical as a big man, but it's big and athletic. You know, they might put him in the center. Just look at his size and stuff. So yeah, keep going. You go ahead.
Well, first and foremost, the '80s was way more physical than the '90s would ever be. Okay, let's just go ahead and put that out there. I want everybody to know that. And I'm not sleeping on the '70s, nor can you go to sleep on the '60s either. Even though you had guys that were a little bit more smaller, it was still such a physical era. You got to think about it. They were still grabbing guys, hand checking, and on top of that, you got to take the racial uh, the racial situations in there. Some of the referees would do let a lot of nasty things go that were going on under the rim and stuff like that. I ain't gonna get into that. Now, when we talk about Giannis, the reason why he's gonna not come off the bench, especially in the '90s, was because he would be able to adapt mentally. It was a mental thing. Like Young and JT. Nowadays, what do? They catapult everything with excuses. Oh well, I ain't gonna be able to play because my hamstring is hurting. Or, hey, well, I didn't win no championship over here, so let me go over there with S Young and JT, man, and hop on with that. Giannis didn't do that. Last time I checked, he stayed in Milwaukee in a small market and was able to do his thing and able to exceed the expectations after people were telling him year after year he couldn't shoot, couldn't get out, couldn't be able and go deep in the playoffs, can't shoot free throws, can't do this, can't do that. And what did he do? He was able to succeed, much like some of the others did during that time. They just piped down and got better, and they took it as a personal challenge. Isaiah, he took it as a personal challenge to beat the Celtics. Jordan, he took it as a personal challenge to beat Detroit. Magic, he took it as a personal challenge to beat, Boston. Whoever. Like Jerry Payton took it as a personal challenge to beat Stockton. Whatever. You know what I'm saying? So he would. Now, I don't know what position. Now, Young, this is my final point. You brought up a good point, and y'all could go after JT or whatever. As far as the position, you're right about that. You could play him in multiple positions in different areas because in that time you hadn't seen a guy like a Giannis or like a guy, for instance, like a KD. You hadn't seen a guy like that, so it's just like, wow. Guess what? Coaches are gonna be like, wow, you are gonna be my secret weapon. Sort of like what Bob Knight did with Michael Jordan. Hey, play him at center. He can do this and he can do that. Giannis would be able to do everything, and with the exception of shooting. And now he's starting to improve that. Y'all got it. I think JT on that. What's up with it, T Price? I see you in the building. Um, you said especially without a jump shot. Well, he's improving on his jump shot. And see, that's the thing. 3,000. They're so fixated on him not having jumpers. Uh, there were a lot of players that were didn't have the greatest shot and were still able to be pretty successful. You understand what I'm saying? So we got to stop. Like you act like they were living at the 3 point line. You know, more they were more into mastering the mid range. You had specialists back then. So the shot thing, you wouldn't be tripping on that. And then on top of that, you got to understand it was a back to the basket type of game. Young, you still there, brother? Salute to you, Roddy Ice. I think Young fell out. Let's see. Now, you said I just think you said I don't know about decent. He would be decent 3,000. Matter of fact, I could see Giannis averaging maybe about I would give him about 15. I would say anywhere between 15 and 21 points. In the 80s, probably a little less than that because the 80s was way more physical. They did a lot of more cutthroat stuff than they did in the 90s, in my personal opinion. They talk about the 90s as if like that's like the golden standard of physicality when it wasn't. And people forget that, the Bucks team were one of the more physical teams. Detroit, that was a physical team back then. Boston was a physical team. Philly, we were a physical team. And even out when you played on the west and out west, they were physical too. Yeah, I'm talking about the '80s. He's talk. Charles Oakley is talking about the '90s. I'm saying he would do. He wouldn't come off the bench in either era, and he would do even better in the '90s because it was less physical than the '80s. Yeah, he's wrong on this one. He's out of pocket, and I like Oak. Don't get me wrong, I respect him, but you know, you have to take into account the mental the mental fortitude that Giannis has. Yeah, everybody's looking at it from a physical standpoint, and even from a physical standpoint, Giannis is strong, man. Like, what are you? Y'all are looking at Giannis as if he hit me one time. You're talking about a guy that hyperextended his knee and still wanted to play. He still wanted to get out there and play. They had to force him to go back to the locker room. He still wanted to play on a hyperextended knee. That tells you what type of he's cut different. And in physical nature sports like basketball or football and all this other stuff, you have to be wired different. You got to be wired different. Salute to you, Omaha, Casey. I see you in the building. You said I agree with Oak. I was saying these guys are not that good in this era. Well, that's your personal opinion, but I appreciate you, uh, Shosha Bicho. I can't pronounce your name, but that's your personal opinion. It's just that you know you have to take you have to put everything in its proper context. The '90s again, it was not the most physical era. It wasn't. I know we like to think that because when we think of Jordan and all this other stuff, it wasn't the most physical era. You ask anybody on here, Giannis would be a David Robinson type in the '90s. Exactly. Giannis can face up. David Robinson, he used to be able to face up. David Robinson had moves. He had incredible footwork. Now, until he ran into, a guy like Hakeem Olajuwon, he had to show him who was boss. But I feel you, Corey, because I don't think he'll come out the bench and be a dominant player. But he will still make some noise. So I think he should. Yeah, exactly. And why Giannis run it through think think why I don't understand what you were trying to write, but you said he wouldn't run through Wilt or Shaq. No, I'm not. No, we're not saying that. We're not saying that, and we don't even know the positioning. Now, listen, you know, Shaq wasn't that great of a defender. I mean, he was a big body, but it wasn't like Shaq was like impossible to score on. Hakeem scored on Shaq. Patrick Ewing used to score on Shaq. David Robinson used to score on Shaq. But Shaq would dominate them also on the offensive. I mean, when they were on the defensive end. But Shaq was not impossible to score on. Shaq has been dunked on before. I think people forget that. You know, Shaq wasn't like, you know, this rim protecting monster. If you're gonna say anybody, you gotta say somebody like Dikembe Mutombo, or you gotta say somebody even like an Alonzo Mourning. You know, Alonzo Mourning, his presence, you know, he was focused on rim protection. Back, you know, Hakeem Olajuwon, focus on rim protection. Jamal McGlure, focus on rim protection and being physical. PJ uh, PJ Brown, Daryl Davis, you know. Now Wilt Chamberlain, of course, but Wilt Chamberlain was agile like that. He had a lot of agility like that. I don't think people understand how athletic Wilt Chamberlain was. I mean, this guy was he ran track and he was strong physically, and he opposed his well, he would hold back on imposing his will. But I'm not saying that, but Giannis would be successful in those eras. Everybody acts like Giannis just relies totally on athleticism, and that's not the case. He thinks the game through, and see, Giannis, he wants to get better. That's what they try to do. They try to get better every single season. I know all about Will Uncle play against him. No, he won't. Well, I'm gonna say this again because I don't think I think you're missing my point, sir. I'm telling you, I did not say that he would run through Wilt. That's not what I said. Well, yeah, he does think the game through. You know why? Because think about it. Uh, he came back with a better shot this year after they said that he couldn't shoot. He's improved his 3-point percentage. He's improved his free throw percentage. Well, that's not what he does. Um, and I don't think you're paying attention to Giannis as of late. But when he played against the Lakers, he showed you all types of moves. He was hitting turnarounds. Matter of fact, just go back and look at the game because I know that what you're doing is you're looking at highlights instead of actually looking at the game. But you have to look at the game totally through. Giannis handles the ball, and even more so, you're not even talking about the defense. Don't forget, Giannis does have a Defensive Player of the Year award on his resume, something that many of the greats that you're loving and lauding about don't. Well, I mean that's what you think, but the thing about it is that you have a damn near 7 footer that's capable of doing a lot of things, and he's agile and he's athletic. He can move out on the perimeter. He could guard 1 through 5. So that argument that you're coming with is dead. No, that's not true. And when you're talking about Giannis, um, in terms of thinking the game through, he already knows that people are building a wall. So now he has the understanding that he has to find a different multitude of ways to score, and that comes with you. You're looking at Giannis when he first came in, um, when he first came in under Jason Kidd and all of that. This is a totally different Giannis now, you know. So let's look at the Giannis that won the MVP in the finals that put up 50. Let's look at the Giannis that is a two-time MVP. Let's look at the Giannis that was able to get an MVP and Defensive Player of the Year award in the same season. Well, it's gonna come because Giannis doesn't talk trash. He's not here to be all stylish in front of the media. He's not here to be everybody's friend. He's not here to, you know, be on uh, social media every 15 minutes talking about other stuff. No, Giannis wants to cut your throat and he wants to win. Giannis will do everything to prove you wrong. So, and that's why he would make it in the era of the 80s and the 90s. And that's just on mentality alone. So you're gonna have people that make assumptions like, oh yeah, he's jumping over people or running over people and stuff like that. Giannis improves his game year in and year out in every single aspect. If you look at, guys like James Harden, that's why they never progress. They've never progressed, and they run from team to team trying to destroy different teams. Giannis stayed, and he's built a team without having another superstar on his side and didn't make any excuses about it. So, I mean, we could bring up all the running and jumping over people and all this other stuff. I mean, that it takes time for you to develop. Some people take time to develop certain attributes of their game, and for Giannis, there was some learning curves that he had to make, but he eventually ended up doing it. you know, but it's not just athleticism. He's gotten a lot better. He's gotten a lot better with his footwork. Um, does he have room for improvement with the shot still? Yeah, absolutely. What's up with it, Austin? I see you in the building. Well, you have people that are gonna make this assumption because they're stuck in the past. You know, um, well, and Russell Westbrook is my favorite player, but he actually Russell Westbrook has improved his jumper. If you go look at Russell Westbrook when he first came into the league, he had no jumper at all. And he's never been a jump shooter. But the thing that was saving him, if you go look at a lot of games, he had to stop and pop right there at the free throw extended. Um, Russell Westbrook has a knack for attacking the rim or whatnot. And yes, he did rely on the athleticism. But what they're not telling you is how durable he is. What they're not telling you is, um, unlike AD, he's at least able to stay on the floor. He's only missed a couple of games this season. Melo has missed more games. AD has missed more games. I'd rather have a guy that's available who's working hard. Hey, he's cut down on the turnovers. And at one point in time, James Harden was leading the league in turnovers, but they won't tell you that. You said elite players skill set. What's up with it, Theo? I see you in the building in any era because great work on the craft and adjust and adapt the errors that play style. Well, here's the thing. You know, there are some players that could play, and there are some players that couldn't play. To me, I don't really look at the '90s as this this fear, this whole fearsome, this godlike era or anything like that, because it was to me it wasn't the most physical era. In the '80s had to know how to score. Like you had to have real good fundamentals and you really utilize your footwork and moves in order for you to be successful instead of just relying purely on your athleticism. And if you're just relying purely on your athleticism, they're gonna find some way to take you out of the game, you know, physically. You know, so you know, I don't. It's great, but Giannis is not coming off the bench. He's not coming off the bench. Um, you know, how successful would he be? We don't know. And you also have to realize, you know, there was a lot more structure, in my opinion, in terms of offenses, in terms of offenses and even defenses. There was a lot more structure than there is in today's game, and you also got to consider there was no spacing. So to me, Giannis would be able to adapt to either one because he could play physical or he could play finesse. It doesn't matter. You know, he'll give you what you want. But um, anyways, I appreciate everybody pulling up. Like the video, share, subscribe, hit the notification, Polo Sports Talking Entertainment. I will get at you later.